And when a judge actively requests football tickets to decide the result of a judicial case, something that is being tried in a court, is unbelievable, or was unbelievable for me at the time. I was shocked to know that this is all it takes for a judge to be corrupted in Portugal. Obviously, there are others that want much more than this, but this, to me, was the the practical case that made me understand just how corrupt our justice system is. And then we got José Sócrates as Prime Minister in 2005, after Jorge Sampaio, the guy that I mentioned before, that was president of our country, decided to fire a government with a majority in parliament because he didn't like the Prime Minister at the time. This sort of behavior is something that the socialists do a lot. With José Sócrates, the control of the justice system was absolute. The Supreme Court and the Attorney General were under his control, absolutely. They would not pursue any accusation done to José Sócrates, or any politician, but José Sócrates was, of course, the Prime Minister, so he was protected much more than anyone else. And these guys, the Supreme Court and the Attorney General, were even involved in a very, very hilarious, if not tragic, situation, because José Sócrates was caught precisely on a phone tap, supposedly doing some sort of shady deals. At least this is what a judge considered, and that this should be investigated. But the Supreme Court judge and the Attorney General decided that, oh no, we listened to the phone tap and there's nothing incriminatory there, so we are just going to destroy the phone tap. And everyone was wondering, wait, if there's nothing wrong with it, why can't it go public? We will listen to it, and that's it. If there's nothing incriminatory, then that's done. Let us listen to the phone tap. And they continued, no, trust us. We heard the phone tap. There is nothing incriminatory with José Sócrates, so we're going to destroy the phone tap. And apparently that's what they did. There were some rumors that someone made copies, but we never knew anything about this anymore. And while José Sócrates was in power between 2005 and 2011, absolutely no case involving him, and he was always being mentioned in criminal cases, corruption cases, and as I mentioned in my previous videos, the regulatory institutions were essentially attacking journalists not to even talk about those cases involving José Sócrates. The justice system was ignoring every single case. They wouldn't even investigate it, basically, related with José Sócrates, and the guy was involved in so many that it was quite impossible that he wasn't actually involved in them. There were so many, I mean, it was impossible. But nothing happened. And only after he lost the elections in 2011, we actually got an investigation into his crimes, and he eventually was arrested for a little while because the justice system at the time was concerned that he would try to do some sort of thing that would prevent them from collecting proper evidence. He would probably try to destroy evidence and so on, and so he was arrested for a little while, for a few months, I believe. I don't remember how many. And today, this was in 2014, today things are pretty much the same. He is not even in trial yet because the process was conducted by a judge, and this judge is fairly known in Portugal for the high-profile cases that he gets. He doesn't seem to have any sort of... He has no problem in attacking potential criminals. He is not shy of his words. Obviously, he's a judge, so he doesn't really say all that he would want, probably. He's one of those judges that, since he takes care of these high profiles, he has his own security team at all times. He receives death threats, his family receives death threats, that sort of thing. And he's not shy about attacking potential criminals. And so he was quite aggressive in the José Socrates process, as he interrogated the people involved, including José Socrates, because this whole scheme with José Socrates wasn't just about José Socrates. He had a whole crew involved in his schemes. And so this judge, because he was quote-unquote aggressive, the defense team of José Socrates and other people accused in this case wanted to remove that judge from the process. And they achieved that. In Portugal, before a case goes to trial, I don't know about the other countries, but in Portugal, before a case goes to trial, the accused can request what we call the instruction procedure. The instruction procedure is basically a pre-trial where the judge that takes care of the instruction procedure decides which crimes the accused have to go to trial, to potentially go to trial. This judge will decide which crimes are valid to go to trial or not. And so the defense teams for all the accused, they wanted to remove the other judge and wanted to select another judge. And this other judge is the opposite of the one that was taking care of this case involving José Socrates. He is not aggressive against potential criminals. In fact, he's pro-criminals. We had jihadi scumbags in Portugal trying to recruit people for ISIS, and this judge basically, he was caught, but this judge basically set him free. No penalty, no problem. We had a gang of people blowing up ATMs, and this judge set them free. No issues. He also prevents investigations to supposed corrupt politicians. They have lots of loose ends, but this judge doesn't allow investigations to proceed, and that's why he gets lots of complaints that another court usually sides with the ones that want to do the investigations, and they annul the decision of this judge. He is absolutely corrupt. He is absolutely controlled by the politicians and by the regime, and he has absolutely no issues in simply setting free criminals. He has done so in the past. And so José Socrates and everyone else wanted this judge to be responsible for the instruction. And the funny part is that this selection of the judge for the instruction process is done by an application, a computer application, that supposedly has in consideration all the processes that each judge has in their hands to select the one that will take this one. And the selection for the judges was basically only two judges. This guy, pro-criminal, and the other guy, pro-victims or against criminals, basically. And the application failed 4 times. To do a selection between two people, the application failed 4 times. And then it selected Ivo Rosa, which is the pro-criminal judge, exactly the one that José Socrates and everyone else that were accused wanted. It was hilarious to see, but everyone was already expecting that, because this was clearly done by politicians to protect José Socrates. Because again, if José Socrates goes to trial and is convicted, this will drag the socialists in the mud, and they don't want that. They want to protect the Socialist Party, and so they resort to all these schemes, to all these backstage dealings, to all these manipulations in order to achieve that goal. And if that wasn't enough, recently Angola, a country with whom several companies in Portugal have dealings with, and they actually have lots of debts to Portuguese companies. among other things. But the Portuguese are always very submissive to Angola, precisely because of that, because there are many dealings that they want to maintain. But there was a corruption case involving a guy called Manuel Vicente, which was I believe he was part of a government in Angola, and he was involved in a corruption case here in Portugal. He bribed a judge, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was a judge, but he bribed someone in Portugal to get whatever he wanted. And there were pressures from Angola so that the guy would not be tried in Portugal. They wanted to move the case to Angola, where he would, quote-unquote, be tried correctly. But that was obviously a smokescreen. They just wanted to free the guy. He goes to Angola and he's not suffering any sort of issues right now. The pressures to the justice system, or at least to the ones investigating this, that would then lead this to a trial, the pressures were done precisely by Antonio Costa, which is the current Prime Minister, and even the President, our President of the Republic, called Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, which is basically a useful idiot. He is pretty much a puppet of the government, and the only thing he wants is to go abroad with the taxpayer money. He wants to go on every trip possible, and he wants to take selfies with pretty much everyone that wants to take a selfie with him. He's not the president. He's just a useful idiot, as I said before. And what happened? Well, with all these pressures, we heard that they would not proceed with the investigation in Portugal, or he would not be tried in Portugal, and the case would be sent to Angola, where right now absolutely nothing is happening to this Manuel Vicente guy, as was the purpose of the pressures by Angola, and subsequently the pressures done by our own president and our own prime minister to the justice system. So Portugal has absolutely no separation of powers. The justice system is completely controlled by the political establishment, especially the Socialist Party, and there's nothing that anyone can do to change this, because the system protects itself. And unless we get some sort of huge majority in Parliament willing to change this, Portugal will stay the same. And the politicians, they don't want things to change in Portugal in terms of justice, because it suits them. They are never accused of anything. They can be as corrupt as possible. They can almost kill them, and nothing will happen to them. Absolutely nothing will happen to them. So I will have more to say about this, but I'll leave it at that for now. I hope you like this. Please subscribe and also leave a comment if you have anything to say about this matter, and I'll see you next time.